There we go. Okay. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about proactive versus reactive recruitment, giving you some practical hints and tips as to things that you can be doing if you're not already doing them, and how you can really maximize your reach in a very, very difficult market. I'm joined today by Vince, who's the managing director of PharmiWeb. And if you have any questions for us at all, please do use the chat function located at the top of the screen. Pop your question in there, and I'll make sure it's asked at the end of the session. Vince, over to you.
Lovely. Thanks, Simon. First of all, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. We're going to keep this one quite short. Some of the webinars have gone on for over an hour, so we think shorter is actually better. Just so everyone's aware, we're also doing more webinars from September onwards. So the September webinar will be on internal mobility. In October, it's going to be on personalization for candidates. And in November, we're going to look at future trends and potentially what's coming up in 2023. So let's work our way through this one relatively quickly, and obviously we'll answer any questions at the end. So first of all, for you that don't know me, I've been running PharmiWeb now for 26 years. I'm fairly well connected with what most people are doing in the industry, and we have a very good research team here that goes out and actually looks at what's currently going on in the marketplace so that we can actually feed that back to not only our clients, but putting them out in webinars like this just to keep everyone up to speed with what we're seeing in the market and anything that might affect you and some of your recruitment needs. So first of all, how do we influence the market at the current time? Well, from our point of view, one of the things that a lot of our clients are doing are no longer seeing candidates as a local resource. They're seeing them as a global resource. We call this flexible talent, where you can use people across different time zones, different countries, all working on the same projects to actually get the job done. This is allowing companies to utilize resource that they've never looked at before because it's normally been localized in certain areas or certain countries. And where they can actually bring them into global teams. So this is one way of addressing some of the recruitment need at the current time. So some core views, really. Employment at the moment, just because of the pandemic and everything that's going on, is in flux. You know, COVID's caused a lot of problems. It's also enabled a lot of candidates to rethink where they are in the world. My impression at the current time, looking at the data we've got, is we've lost about 1.5% of the global talent workforce in pharma and life sciences. Those people have left and they won't be coming back. So there is a shortage of people. People keep saying to me, where's all the talent gone? Well, actually, a lot of it has gone. So we're having to work a lot harder to actually bring on new people. So when we're looking at approaching passive talent, we need to use a number of factors that we're going to use to approach them. If you look at the feedback we're getting from LinkedIn, they're suggesting that 70% of the global workforce is made up of passive talent. That's primarily because most people on LinkedIn are being approached between 50 and 100 times a day. So LinkedIn's actually driving that. If we look at the amount of vacancies currently, this is from last Thursday. At EMEA, and in the UK, we had 10,000 vacancies in the UK and 102,000 vacancies in the USA and 41,000 in Asia Pac. I think there was something like 43,000 live vacancies in EMEA as well. So huge amounts of vacancies that we've not seen before at sort of this level. I think in the last 25 years, I've never seen it as busy as it is now, or as difficult to hire that talent that you really need. And candidate is king. Lots of choice, lots of opportunities, to the point where, you know, most people, if they're looking for a job, they're gone relatively quickly. And if they don't like that job, guess what? They can leave within 10 days and no one seems to bat an eyelid anymore because it wasn't quite right for them. We're starting to see these trends happening more and more often, and it needs to be controlled to a certain extent by establishing what sort of person you really need. So one of my favorite sayings at the current time is hire the right employee, not any employee. Not as easily done when you're a big organization and you need a lot of people, but in some of the smaller organizations, you can be a little bit choosier as to the sort of person you want, someone that actually fits in with your own parameters as far as what you're really looking for from a personal point of view. So hiring challenges, candidate identification, cultural fit, and candidate engagement are always going to be the biggest ones. I can't see this changing in the near future. Candidate engagement primarily because of what's happening on LinkedIn at the current time. A lot of people are actually starting to turn off their accounts on LinkedIn because they get bombarded by people contacting them on a regular basis. Hence, it's why it's causing people problems. But we are seeing a big change in cultural fit. Candidates that are actually moving to go and work for a company they want to work for rather than work for someone that they don't want to work for. And sometimes that includes taking a lower salary or a similar salary, but actually working in an environment that suits them. Personal parameters are starting to take precedent. The other thing you need to think about when we're being proactive in recruitment is what candidates are doing. 74% of candidates are initially finding jobs on their mobile phone. So you've basically got 4 clicks or 9 seconds to get their interest and actually allow them to apply or find what they're looking for. So the core with all of that is really remove any friction that there might be in actually allowing them to apply for jobs or get any information, finding the information succinctly. If they spend too long looking for it, they just move on to the next company. So one of the things that we're doing on PharmiWeb is deploying employer hubs. A lot of candidates look at that while they're flicking between jobs so they can actually find information that they're looking for. And the other thing to think about is, what do employees look like? They're primarily going to be millennials. And the thing that candidates are looking for, if they're millennials, is how they're going to develop their career, what's the most important thing to them from a work-life balance point of view, and how they combine the two. So companies that are starting to look at new potential employees as individuals and not employees are actually doing better than most people in the market because they're starting to talk to them about what their own personal needs are. So when you're finding talent, the key thing is think about your social media presence. Candidates are everywhere. When we go looking for candidates, we use omni-channel marketing. That means we're looking on social media platforms, we're looking in blogs, we're looking on other websites, we're looking at data, we're doing data mining. On all of those things enable us to get through to targeting both passive and active candidates at the same time. So you need to make sure that what you're putting out there is actually going to reach them no matter where they are. Obviously, don't overlook places like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram over LinkedIn. It's not just LinkedIn out there, which a lot of people fall into the trap of doing. Tap into the international market. Start to see candidates from any talent pool as someone that you could potentially use, especially if you're gap filling in shortfalls in certain projects. So Australia are obviously struggling a lot at the moment, so they've actually changed their global talent visa so you can get it a lot quicker, and in some cases you can turn it around in 2 weeks if you need to, rather than 2 years, which is what you used to look at. So find ways that are going to allow you to tap into international talent pools, bring those people in if you need them, even if it's only on a short-term basis. So when we're looking to find talent as well, we need to be responsive to the job seeker needs. So candidates are constantly making it obvious what they're looking for. Flexibility, work-life balance, more important than ever, but also the job's important. What are they going to be working on? What are the people they're going to be working with like? Is the culture of the company right for me as well? If you're just looking for people that are looking for money, guess what? They're always going to be looking for money and they'll be moving on pretty quickly. To try and find ways to avoid that. So when we're looking at global market talent, it's all about personalized recruitment, offering them what they want as individuals, not as employees. So from our point of view, we know that you need to have at least 5 or 6 interactions with a candidate before they start to see you as an employer that they'd want to work for. And we call it building awareness into the funnel. So the first 2 or 3 times you send out information to them, you're building that awareness. The second 2 or 3 times they see recruitment advertising, press releases, EVB, they're starting to consider you as an employer. And then finally, they make that decision to go and look for more information about you. And then you become someone that they're going to consider as an employer of choice. Once they've got that in their head, you're halfway through to actually recruiting quite a lot of really good people because you've drawn them onto the market and made them aware of what you're looking for. So when we're looking at 7 ways to capture candidates' attention, the first one is answer what's in it for me. Why would they look at you as an organization? What are your unique selling points? What are you doing down to a country level, down to a site level? Who are they going to be working with? It's not all about the package. It's about the job and where they're going in the future. Use the right language when you're talking to people. Think about the keywords and think about how you're targeting candidates. Don't just recruit anybody. If you've got some very specific roles that you want, make sure you're very specific in what you're asking for. Because guess what? Google will pick that up and make sure they see it. Improve your website. Make it more appropriate for job seekers. Short, succinct information, 2 to 3 line paragraphs Ideally 1 to 3.5 minute videos. I can tell you now there's not a single candidate out there in the market that will read more than 1 page of text, but they'll all watch a video because primarily they're looking at your information on their mobile phone. So when you're looking at the content, 50% tech, when we're looking at videos, etc., and then 50% as standard materials that they can look at and read and think about. Improving your careers page is a couple of easy things you can do when you're engaging with candidates, being proactive. Make it really easy for them to search for jobs. Make sure your search engine's up to date and it's actually working. I'm still finding websites where it's really, really difficult to apply for a job. Make it quick and easy. If the application's quick, the candidates will actually do it. If you can make it mobile friendly, even better. If it takes more than 7 minutes, you're going to lose 32% of all of your traffic immediately. So find ways to actually get that going through quicker. Have engaging content. Think about what you're actually saying and the sort of people you're looking for. Make sure you highlight your company culture, and also think about career progression. Even before candidates start, they like to think about what are they going to be doing with you? What's their roadmap look like while they're with you? What training are they going to get? What internal movement can they do? So if you're looking at internal mobility, what are the options? Where could they be going? More mobile friendly, the better. So just a couple of suggestions there. Company culture, as I said, is becoming really important, even to bigger organizations. One of the companies that I think have absolutely nailed this is GSK. They've been very clever at positioning themselves in certain locations at certain sites as being family friendly, and it's really working for them and paying off. That's a company that spent a lot of time thinking about exactly what they want from candidates. And involve your employees as well. So 66% of candidates say they want to hear more from your own employees. They want to see videos from your employees. Everyone has internal champions, people that really enjoy working for the organization. Get them on video for up to 3 minutes in their own words, talking about what they're doing. Do not use actors. Candidates really want to see real people talking about real situations that they're in. And then they can talk about the successes they've had with you, what they've learned from you, where they're going in the future. And that really helps candidates make the decision whether or not to apply for you as the employer that they want to work for. And then candidates use job boards. Make sure you've got a presence there, really. Make it easy for them to update their CV. Make sure it's easy to find your information, even if it's a single profile page. Make it easy for finding jobs. And then you can think about the free resources you might get on those websites as well. In PharmiWeb, we have lots of different things you can utilize. Other sites have the same things. Make sure you use all of those things if you're on those sites. And stay up to date with the latest industry news and developments. If there's a trend going around or if people are looking for a certain thing, ride off the back of it. I've got a lot of clients that rode off the back of a big campaign we did a couple of years ago for Novartis around data and biometrics. Those things can really help if there's a lot of activity in those areas. So keeping your finger on the pulse is really, really important when we're going out and looking at other sites. So when we're looking at employer branding, candidates are 40% more likely to be interested if they recognize your brand, which is fantastic if you're a bigger company. The likes of IQVIA and Seniors out there in the clinical phase, the big pharmas, everyone knows who they are. But some of the smaller companies, you've got to work harder at making sure they know who you are. And think about a strong employer brand, because obviously it allows you to recruit 2 times faster and it reduces your cost per hire by 50%. So all of these things can make a huge difference to proactively going after candidates. One of the things that we talk about is giving candidates what they want. So being proactive includes making it easy for the candidates to find that information. The biggest one on our sites, when we look at the microsite content that we have on PharmiWeb, is candidates when they come in. So they're really looking at the culture of the company. Who are you? What are your teams like? What's the global view look like? What's the future look like for the company? Do you have a diversity policy? And more importantly, what are the people going to be like that I'm going to be working with in that country on that site? I can tell you now, candidates that are interested in Paris don't care what you're doing in the US and they don't care what you do in the UK or anywhere else in the world. All they care about is what they're doing in Paris. Short form information. The main career ones are these ones, and these should be 1.5 to 3.5 minute videos and 2 to 3 line paragraphs at most. Career path examples, a day in the life, what training am I going to get? What's going to be available to me? I want to see team lead videos. The people that are going to employ me, talk to me passionately about why I should come and join your team. Great workplace videos. These are like corridor calls. Again, 2 to 3 minutes, staff coming out of the staff room, working in an environment, talk about why they think it's a great place to work and what opportunities and benefits am I going to get down to a local level. Again, if you're only interested in Paris, give them the information in Paris, let them find it quickly and succinctly. And those success stories from your internal champions that really like working with you, get them online, because guess what? All of this information works 24/7 on your behalf, and candidates are looking for jobs 24/7. Other things that could tip the scales: charity work and awards that you've won as an organization. And the two biggest ones are environmental and sustainability policies. Everyone cares what we're doing to the planet. So when you're proactively trying to attract people, make sure they can find this information, because this might be a really important thing to them. If they can't find it, they'll go somewhere where they can. Don't lose people. This one in particular can make the difference between people applying or not applying very, very quickly. So when we're looking at push technology, one of our clients, Synis, uses our newsletters very, very well. They're really at the top of their game as far as their employer branding is concerned. Very strong imagery. They embed their jobs in newsletters, which we push out to target audiences. They then reverse that back into their employer hubs so they can see their employer branding. So an example from this, from a year or so ago, this newsletter went out to 46,561 CRAs. 5,422 opened it and saw their employer branding. That was an 11.5% open rate, and 205 candidates clicked through onto those jobs. This is important. This gets in front of candidates. This is where we're not sitting there reactively waiting for them to come in and see your jobs. The newsletters are hitting them, making them aware of your jobs, changing the perception about you as an organization, and allowing them to find this information really, really quickly and succinctly. Get this information right, it can make a huge, huge difference. So when we're looking at the global talent market, there's a number of things you can do, especially around showcasing employees. So the first one is be candidate specific. Think about the empathy and the type of candidate that you actually want working for you, and talk about the things that are going to make that person right for you as an organization. Again, as I said at the beginning, hire the right employee, not any employee, because they're the ones that are going to stay with you because they've got the right mindset for your organization. Think about showcasing current employee successes. So, and again, push that information up. Get them on video, push it on social media, put it out on our site, wherever it might be. It tells potential candidates about the company culture and what people think about you in their own words. Really important to get people interested. The other thing you do is spotlight features. This is where you can get individuals from the organization to just talk about different departments, different incentives, what they're actually doing. It doesn't always have to be about talent acquisition. It can be some of your good managers talking about what they're doing in regulatory, what they're doing in sales, how the company's performing. Get your managing director on here talking about why he really wants the right people working for the organization and where you're going in the future. They can make a difference between whether someone applies or not employs. The other thing you do is start to do storytelling. So we work with a CSL in Australia, and they're really good about talking about their history, where they've come from, where they're going. Again, it's a really strong way of actually talking about the organization and what it really means to people that work there. So these sorts of things are really good examples of how you can look at your history, look at your background, regardless of what country it's in or what location and whereabouts you're going. The other thing you do is be very personal about sort of people you're looking for, particularly relevant for salespeople. You know, talk about how you want that self-motivated salesperson to be with your organization. Where can they go in their career? Think about them as an individual. What would work for them? I see many, many adverts for commercial people that are pretty much just job descriptions. That is not going to work to attract that type of person. Again, if you were trying to attract nurses, be more emphatic with the nurses, talk about being caring and supportive. It's a different type of person to someone that's commercial. So think about the background of the person you want as well. You can't have a catch-all lad that's going to recruit all the same sort of people. And then talk about employee development. Obviously, this is one of the biggest areas that candidates are looking for. They really want more information as to what they can do. The pandemic has held a lot of people back by at least 2 years. They want to think about their development. Where can they be? What's the career path going to look like? What training can they get? If there's internal mobility, what else they do for the organization? Help them to see this information up front, and it really makes a difference. Then the other things to think about is inbound and outbound recruitment. First of all, inbound, yes, you're going to get out there and look at those active candidates, but you need to do more than that, which is why we then to look at outbound as well. This allows you to actually get your messaging directly out to candidates. But if you're going to do outbound, if you're going to reach out to people, look at those people as individuals and figure out what it is, what's a tailored fit for them, and bring them into the organization, talking about a specific position, not any position. So one of the big complaints I've had from candidates recently is they're getting bombarded by information. And a lot of that information, or the job seekers that are trying to approach them, don't even know what they do. All they know is they've got a job title that fits what they're looking for. They don't know anything about them or what their background is. This information is relatively easy to find, especially if you look at their background and their experience. So make it more tailored to those individuals. The other thing I'm seeing a big change in is how you onboard new starters, because again, this is proactive recruitment as well. If you spend a lot of time trying to find these people, your talent acquisition teams have done their job, you don't want to lose someone at the last minute. So I'm starting to see teams being put together. They're called new starter completion teams, where they make sure the candidates are happy pre-boarding. This reduces dropouts, especially before they've even started, because they've got so many different options they leave at the last minute. So this team actually keeps in touch with the candidate, talks about where they're going, what they need to do to join the organisation, a little bit about the teams they're joining, and about the training they're going to be doing. It really does reduce the dropouts at that point. We're then seeing more new starter post-joining teams, which are looking at future road mapping, development, and transitioning from their last role into this company, and what can they do to help and support them in that period. We've seen a 6, maybe 7% increase now in candidates that leave within the first 10 days of joining an organisation, because it's not what they were looking for. New starter post-joining teams can actually help and change that. But the other thing in being proactive is employee welfare and development teams that look at your existing staff. If you start losing too many of them, I think we're at attrition rates of about 14 and 15% at the moment. If you get to 20%, we're just not going to be able to recruit quickly enough to replace people. So employee welfare and development teams will talk to your existing staff and make sure they're happy, and they're happy with their management, and they're doing the right job. You might have some fantastic people that have been doing the job for 2 to 3 years. They're getting a little bit bored, they're getting a little bit lax, they're starting to think about moving on. Stop them doing that, offer them internal mobility, or offer them something else that they could be doing, another route that they can go within their organisation. It stops you losing those people and allows you to keep them a little bit longer. So, conclusions. Have a strategy, have a plan, and think about the technology that's out there and how it can support you. Think about your social media plan and actually have a plan. Don't just leave it and hope that someone's going to pick it up. Think about your employer branding, because it's essential. Think about the locations and what you're actually doing in those locations down to an individual level when you're talking to candidates. Think about regular proactive targeting. Get it booked in. Make your team aware of what you're doing, how you're actually going to execute that, and how it might affect them. Think about the type of candidate you're looking for and the projects and the type of work that you're likely to be winning in the future, and proactively go after those people. When you're looking at future prospects for candidates, make it very clear what's in it for them to come and join you, because that's the sort of thing that they're looking for. Don't forget staff retention. Don't lose the staff you've got, because again, proactively stopping them losing is going to be a really good big benefit to you. And think about internal mobility. The biggest one is the one at the end. Think about development of all candidates at all stages of their employment life review. Look at them as individuals. Think about them as an individual person. What does that individual want? We've got a lot of data around this, which we can talk about in the future. So that was a whistle-stop tour of this presentation. Timing was about right. Simon, any questions?
Yeah, I've got a few, and anyone watching and listening, if you do have questions, pop them in that chat section, and I'll get them asked now. Anyone who does have to pop off because it's nearly into the next time slot, thank you for coming. And if you have any questions, please do follow up with us, and we'll come back to you. sales@PharmiWeb.com. Vince, I'll get started. One question here on one of the most recent slides you just presented. Is the post-joining, the onboarding, not an HR functionality? Is this being overlooked internally?
I think it is in some cases. I mean, this is a fairly new thing that I picked up that a lot of clients are now developing. It's certainly paying off. It's making a difference. It should be HR, but I think it's one of those things that TAC is picking up. So be aware of it. Start thinking about it. doesn't matter where it comes from as long as you're doing it, because it will make a big difference. That's my personal view on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one here. One of the issues that I struggle with the most is getting in front of my senior management and actually planning our proactive approach to recruitment. Do you have any ideas that I can encourage everyone to get on the same page as me when it comes to this?
I do actually run a particular course on this, which I've done with a number of our clients, around planning what you need to be doing from a talent acquisition point of view. It's a very simple thing to do. If there's enough people that are interested in doing it, I'll run it as a very short session, probably only take 15 to 20 minutes, and I'll show you how to plan that out and actually present that back to your management team and make them more aware of actually all the things that you need to consider and they need to consider, because you're not going to have the time, money, bandwidth to actually do all of these things. They then got to decide what you're not going to do. And that turns things around to the management team to say, you guys better start thinking about this, because getting the right people on board is the #1 priority that most companies have at the current time.
That's a good answer. Thank you. I'll go to one out of the chat very, very quickly. Do you have any data about candidates' preferences to return to work from the office rather than home-based now post-COVID?
We do. It's in what we're going to be doing after this webinar is we're going to be sending you all the data where a lot of this information has come from. It comes in a fact sheet. We've also got fact sheets on our retention webinar that we did, and we've got fact sheets on our employer branding webinar. So have a look at those and come back to us directly with specific questions. And what we'll do is we'll get our research teams to go out and make sure that we get the exact right information for you, rather than sort of bring it up here.
Excellent. Sure. I've got one here. How can I boost interactions, get more touch points?
Are you
Very
talking about?
vague.
Yeah,
Uh,
with candidates, I think primarily being proactive in the form of actually approaching them directly. But one of the things that we've been doing is we do a lot of persona-based targeting, so we know what candidates are doing, know what their background is. We don't send them irrelevant information. That way we don't turn them off. The last thing you want to do is approach people with information that's not right about them, because A, they're going to think you're fairly sloppy, and B, they're not going to be interested and they won't look at you again. So if you're going to approach people directly, make sure you know exactly what you're talking about and what you're sending them, and it's going to be relevant for them as individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to that, you can increase interactions by having presence in multiple places.
Yeah,
So if you've got a really, really good social media presence, that's great. But what are you doing outside of that? Are you doing newsletters? Are you on different advertising sites? Do you have paperwork that people can go and see? You just have to have stuff in as many places that you know your candidates are going to be in, and you'll naturally boost your interactions that way.
absolutely. Well done.
Another one here. When you say candidates use job boards, do you have any Google/LinkedIn data on numbers, etc.?
We don't on other job boards. To be honest with you, we've tried to look at sort of competition to us and what's going on in the market. We don't seem to have any at the current time. If you look at total jobs at the moment, there's been big dropouts there. They're too generic. CV library, too generic. It's good for certain roles, but not everything. I think if you go to all of these job boards, they're all going to give you facts and figures about how great it actually is, but the proof's in the pudding. If it's working, it's working. If it's not, it's not. It's as simple as that. And the view that we've got from the marketplace at the moment, especially from the US, believe it or not, is LinkedIn's the only thing that people are using in the US. Across Europe, it's pretty much just us. So it's a very difficult situation to know where to go and what to do. My biggest piece of advice to everyone out there is to really think about your Google presence, your SEO content. Google controls about 65% of all road mapping for recruitment advertising. So make sure that what you're putting out there is relevant to them. And if you're not sure what that is, come and talk to us and we'll help you with it.
I've just dug out one of the old presentations we did. Google tells us that about 60% of candidates will start a job search on a job board. It's a pretty big number, but equally, you've got to think omni-channel as well. If you're it goes back to what I said a minute ago. If you're just on a job board, you need to consider what else you're doing. What is your LinkedIn presence like? What is your outreach like? Again, you just need to really reaffirm every single avenue that you're taking. I've got one here. Advertising across multiple platforms and mediums can be really costly. Is it worth it, as not all companies can track source data effectively?
Well, my view on that is I think a lot of companies have worked out where the candidates are. They've rationalized their spend accordingly. Dare I say it, I think a lot of companies spend most of their money with, LinkedIn, Indeed, us. And to be honest with you, some companies are starting to spend a lot of money with other organisations as well, like smaller groups, like the likes of Topra for regulatory, for example. So if you know that they've actually got their own membership, they're worth targeting and doing work with them as well.
Yeah. Also, yeah, you're right. Not everyone does track source data
No,
effectively,
they
and
don't.
sadly, the data is only as good as the people that input that data.
Yeah.
Anyone who uses a CRM, anything like that, will be able to tell you the data is only as good as you put in. So all you can really do is bring down the iron fist internally and kind of make sure that people that are bringing candidates in are putting the source where they're coming from.
Mm.
Because it comes to the end of the year, you're looking at your tech stack. You need to reevaluate what you're spending and who you're spending with, because some things will slip through the net and people will just go, meh, call it LinkedIn, even
Yeah.
when it necessarily hasn't been.
My favourite one is most companies that when they're looking at where responses are coming from, one of the answers that they've got on their drop down is job board. Well, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway.
It's true. And I've got one last question here. If there are any more questions, please do pop them in the chat now. Otherwise, we'll wrap up in just a couple of minutes. The last question: what is the best way to attract passive talent that I can start doing today?
I think the best way to approach those people is to start to think about exactly what you're looking for. Think about your social media coverage, and then target them initially by finding out who they are on LinkedIn. Dare I say it? I use LinkedIn all the time myself. But then you need to sort of look at active lists. And the problem with active lists that you see all these list companies saying, "Oh, we can give you all these people." Over 60% of those lists are inaccurate. So data cleansing actually costs us more time and effort than you can possibly imagine. So there's no easy answer to that. Perhaps come and talk to us personally, and I'm more than happy to talk you through some of the things that we do, which might help.
Yeah, to echo that, I'd probably say, consolidate your internal messaging. Make sure that absolutely everyone that's recruiting for you and proactively reaching out to people is singing from the same hymn sheet. A really, really clear, value-driven recruitment drive is probably a good place to start that you could do right now. Get everyone together. How are we talking to people? How are we presenting ourselves outward? And get everyone on the same page. That brings me to the end of all of the questions. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Really appreciate your time this morning. If you do have other questions that you didn't want to put in the chat, you can message them directly, like some people have done, or you can email them to sales@PharmiWeb.com, and we'll come back to you. Vince, any final remarks?
No, just be aware that obviously we're going to do more of these. I think the more personalised you make whatever you're doing, the better it's going to be for you as we move forward. And sadly, it's only going to get busier. It's not going to tail off, guys. So we're looking at least 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 years of increased activity and a lot more traffic. It's going to get more and more difficult to actually go and get people. So think about that when you're looking at your strategies and where you're going in the future. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate everyone attending.